Are vision boards helpful, or are they just some silly thing that people like to do? If you listen to the show at all, you know my views on this. I'm Angela Barnard. I'm your host. This is the Intentional Mind Podcast, and we're in episode 22. And you know we're all about helping you intentionally design your life. So I brought on the show today my sister, who is someone who is a mom in a blended family. She has a toddler. She's a full-time nursing student. She works with veterans. She's really busy, but she's also someone that I think is super intentional, super organized, and just a fun, loving human being. So I'm so excited to have her on the show. We recorded this on the weekend early in the morning, and it was just fun to chat. But I wanted to bring her on really because I wanted you guys to hear how she went from thinking that visioning was just a silly thing to wanting to do it more often, to creating vision boards for not only herself, her husband, and her whole family, but also her toddler. Here's her telling us about her toddler's vision board after she started really enjoying making vision boards.
He would not let me only put one image of a quad. He's like, no, Mom, I want 3. I'm like, okay. So, but yeah, he picked out all of them, and he can literally walk through and say what they mean to him. And it's awesome to talk to him about it because he literally has no limits. And so it makes me kind of want to be more childlike, because just like, you remember when you were little and you just, sky's the limit, you know, like you didn't have those like limiting beliefs.
Yeah, you remember that? Well, here's her telling us about the time she didn't enjoy visioning and where those beliefs really held her back.
Visioning, I used to think that Angela's visioning exercises were a little silly. But I've discovered that many of them have occurred, or many of my visions have occurred even when I'm not consciously thinking about them. Just putting them out there has made them come true. So for example, there was one year that Angela basically twisted my arm to do a vision board with her. And I played along. So we actually had a visioning exercise, I think, at my house. That's what I remember. I want to say this is like in 2015, 2016. And I ended up doing a vision board, but it was for my entire family. So it had my husband on there, myself on there, my children, and even my dogs, as silly as it sounds. Their visions were on there. So we did this ginormous vision board, and we put it downstairs in our rec room where we never go. It was on a wall that it's not an accent wall that you would view. It was like a side wall. And fast forward the next year, I was taking down that vision board and putting something else in that ginormous frame. And I noticed when I was staring at it that we actually accomplished almost every single one of those visions. And I have to say there were probably like 30 different visions on there. And we never even went back and reviewed the vision board. It just happened. For example, there was a SUV on the vision board, and it was a white SUV. And we ended up buying a truck that year, and it was a white Dodge Durango. It was the same vehicle that was on that vision board, which I never even realized. There were things on there such as we just purchased a new home, so getting grass and landscaping. And so we ended up hiring a landscaper. We got all of our grass that was there. My son had getting fish, and he ended up having some fish and a ginormous fish tank that year. So there was just like many things that occurred, and just putting them out there.
Yeah. What happens when you just get intentional? And, I always say like keeping that board in front of you is really important. And I have like a gazillion kinds of little vision boards, mini ones, big ones, all the things. And, but I have seen where people have taken my visioning classes and they will just flat out say, okay, Ange, I never put it in front of me. I like left it in the drawer. But it's so crazy because when I went back and looked at it, I was like, whoa, like all these things actually did come to be, and usually in ways better than they could imagine. So that's what happened. Like, I guess that's the beginning of your visioning journey. But you also had an experience with visioning where I did an exercise with you and kind of, in a sense, challenge some of the beliefs that you had around what was possible. And tell us what that was about. What am I talking about? Tell us.
Okay, so that was a visioning exercise, I think is the way you worded it. Maybe you said clarity exercise that we did. And it was just a regular phone call that, you have with your sister when you're venting about all the things that are going wrong in your life. But I vividly remember it. So I was in my office at a job that, on break, I believe, in my office at a job that I wasn't very happy at. And I had just had a baby. And so my maternity leave just ended. And I was really distraught because I wanted to be home with my son. Like, it was a huge value of mine. I would, just even on the way to work every day, I would just cry because I just wanted to be there with him. He was only 2 to 3 months old. And so I remember talking to Ange about this, and I basically said, I am not happy. There are a lot of things in my life that are not going right. And it's impossible to get to the point where I want to get because a lot of factors would have to change. And Ange asked me the question, well, what does that look like? What would your life look like to where you would get what you want? And I'm like, it's impossible. I don't even know why we're talking about this. So she goes, well, just humor me. Just tell me, what is that? And so I proceeded to tell her, well, I'm not in the career I'm in. I just, it's a good job, but it doesn't bring me joy. So I'd have to go back to school. And then I would have to find a way to have income, for my family. And I would have to get a sitter and somebody that I trust. And at that time, I think I had him in daycare, I believe, but there was just a lot of elements that had to change. And so I said, basically, I need someone to pay for my school. I want more time with my son. I don't want to work, so I need some passive income of some kind. And yeah, that just seemed like impossible at the time. But it ended up working out. And that's a whole nother story.
So basically, how did that work out? Because you put these ideas in your mind. Like, I wonder how could that happen? Even though at first you were like, this ain't gonna happen. But when I kind of challenged you around it or encouraged you to think about, to get a little more clear around ideally what you'd like your life to look like, even if you didn't know how that was possible, just to make it clear. Then you started getting curious and some opportunities came your way. So tell us about that.
Okay. So I humored Angela. So I was thinking, I don't want to be at this job anymore. So how can I get out of it? I just started honestly doing like a Google search. I mean, it was really silly. I was like, military benefit, I was in the service for quite some time, and I was looking at, how could I pay for school? So I was just Googling military benefits, paying for school, looking through the e-benefits website, which is a military benefits website. And I ended up just like applying for these random grants and this program that I had no idea what I was applying for. I was just like, I'm just going to apply for everything. And if something, someone calls me back, that's great.
You had a phone call, and you thought that it was an interview. You didn't even know why they were calling you. And what was it?
So yeah, I had a phone call from the program that I applied in, and at first I thought I just wanted to hang up because I was like, I think you got the wrong number. It felt like a telemarketer at first, and then it felt like I'm like, actually the gentleman that was calling me was like, do you know what you applied for? Because he could tell I was confused too. And I was like, oh yeah, I know. So then I got off the phone with him. I said I was interested, and I quickly did some more research because I just had no idea.
Because I remember you saying that you were like, was that like an actual job phone interview?
Yeah, I had like, he was serious. Like, he was like interviewing me and asking me all these serious questions. So I think I played it like, I have a little one I have to get to. I'll call you back type of thing. And then research what I what I applied for. And then I realized, I actually found some YouTube videos, and there was like lawyers and doctors talking about how they got their program, or they went to back to school because of this program. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is serious. So then I started prepping for it, and it was really good because I ended up getting into the program, and now, well, there's a couple things going on at the same time. So I got into the program, which was great, but I still had this job.
So let's just say that you got into the program and your school was completely paid for.
Yes.
And then some, like as far as laptops, all the things, like
yes.
Initially in your mind, like I want to go back to school, but I don't have the money for that. Plus I got to work for my family, and just all these thoughts around like how that wasn't possible. But then you got clear in the vision. And then instead of thinking about how it's not possible, you started asking like, well, how could it be? And it led you down this rabbit hole and found you this opportunity where all of your school was paid for, but then you're still working this job, but you're still desiring to want to be home with your kids. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was working this job that I felt really obligated to stay, because I really, my boss was just a huge influencer. I mean, Angela,
Yes,
actually,
she was my boss too.
we both had the same boss at one point, and she has made such a positive impact on my life, and I just felt really obligated to stay. But the wonderful thing is, so school, okay, rewind. School's being paid for. I'm getting a passive income along with going to school, along with all my supplies getting paid for. So that problem is solved. Then magically, our agency was going through this is not a good thing. It was actually very stressful at the time for a lot of people, but a massive layoff. So there was 2 streams of it, and I secretly was hoping I got laid off during the first stream. I didn't. So the second stream came, and I did. And this was way later after the first one, but I remember everyone coming up to me and just being very apologetic. And I'm just like ecstatic.
Because it gave you some income where you could be at home. You're starting this program. So it was like, this is a blessing. Yeah. And the whole, and let's be clear, like it was a blessing to even have the job in the first place, truly. But a lot of toxic things were happening, and we were going through this complete
agency
shift.
remodel. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, so it's just so cool to see how all of this came to be, like just by you allowing yourself to dream and vision. And that's the biggest barrier I find with people, is that they won't even allow themselves to dream. They'll be like, oh, it's not possible. Like, let's not even talk about it, And I'm like, just like, humor me, just share it with me. And don't worry about the how, because that's where God comes in. That's where doors can be open in ways above and beyond what we could even imagine. But when you start to seek those answers, like, what is it? What's the whole quote? Knock and the doors will be open for you. Did I make that up? I'm not saying it right. But anyways, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the another thing that happened is your house. So tell me about your house that you live in now.
Yeah. So the house that I live in, our old house was great. I mean, I'm going to rewind a little bit. Our old house was great. We built it. It was only 5 years old, but our family grew out of it. We ended up having another baby. We just didn't have the room. So we've been looking for a while for a new home, and we had a lot of things like on our checklist.
You wanted your dream home.
Yes.
And for most people's minds, their dream home feels very out of reach for them, financially and all of that. And yours kind of was, right?
It was, because at the time I'm getting this income, but it is military funded, and so it's I'm unable to claim it. So they wouldn't count that as income for the home. So it was just on my husband's income. And at the time he had, we were making a lot more than what it was showing on paper that we were, because he hadn't been at his job for long enough. So they were just counting his base. So they were not counting his commissions. And
for those that
this,
have gone through the home buying process, they totally understand all the things involved in trying to get a new home and income, all the things.
Very stressful process. But we basically found this home that we loved. It is, it's rather large. It has we're surrounded by these parks all around it. We have over 5 acres, and yeah, it's just a really peaceful spot right downtown where we live. And it's just one of a kind in this area. So we ended up finding this home, but our income didn't match what we needed to get the home, which it did, but not on paper. And so we tried to get it, and it ended up selling before.
And I remember you driving by it and talking about how much you loved it. And I was like, hey, take a picture of it, put it in your phone, keep looking at it. And then it sold on you.
Yes, I was so sad. I was like, Angela, this visioning stuff does not work because the house sold. So
then what happened?
I was a creep about this house. I mean, Josh and we lived all the way on the other side of town. I mean, like literally like 25, 30 minutes on the other side of town. And we would weekly, a few times actually a week, drive by the house and creepily like park in front of it and just stare like at it.
And let's be clear, I think people were kind of like not living there fully at the time.
No, yeah, I don't think they were either. Or
just
they were
to kind of bring the creep factor down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that it's a huge house, and I think there was a girl like maintaining it downstairs. So
you would kind of pull in, you would act like this was your home. And I talk about that a lot too, like acting as if it already is, trying to not be super creepy about it, but you know what I mean? Yes. At a level where you're not going to get arrested or something.
I did not go onto the property. I mean, I may have
just pulled in like the driveway, look at it, visioning yourself, opening your garage, all the things.
So I was not like on public property or anything like that. Oh, my little one just woke up. But I remember us being in Savannah, and I was so sad. Actually, it was with you, Ange, and we were at that oil place, side note, tasting all these different like wonderful oils. And I came out and I was so sad that it sold. And I remember like actually all of my sisters were there and everyone like comforting me in that process. But search continues. We keep looking. Nothing even remotely comes close to this dream house. And I want to say it was like about 2 months. My son's in the room with me. About 2 months later, and the house was back on the market. And so we tried again, and we got it. So it just like we didn't give up on hope, because even my husband was like, you know what, they still have to go through the process of buying it. So even he was hopeful. So we were like secretly praying that these people that this was our house still, even though it was pending.
Well, I love these stories, and I know that so many people have stories like this, and I know I have a gazillion stories like this, where it's like I always tell people like even like when other people say that's not possible, that ain't gonna happen, it's like, no, I always say that's their truth. It doesn't need to be yours. And God is bigger. God is bigger than any statistic, anything happening. And I feel like this is just another great story. So I wanted to have you on to share this awesome story. And again, to encourage people to allow themselves to dream for more and to be intentional about it and start asking the questions like, how? I wonder, and get into that curious state. Because I think that's where this stuff starts to flow in, that curious kind of faith-filled state. All right, man. Thanks so much for being on the show. Love you.
Love you. Hey, Kai wants to say hi. Here.
That was my nephew, and I just wanted to share this episode with you to show that I'm a real person. That's my real sister, and these are real stories of how people have turned their visions into reality. I love this work so much, and I believe so much in the power of being intentional and getting clear on the vision that you have, making it known, making those desires known, and letting God truly work with you. Now, I have another visioning workshop coming up that I'm teaching on February 3rd and 10th. For anyone who missed my first part and they just want to see it live with me, you can find that information over at my Facebook group called The Intentionalists if you're interested in that. We have a lot more other things coming up too in the future, but if you're enjoying these episodes, please leave a review if you haven't done so. You just scroll down, you click the stars, and then below that you'll see write a review. Thank you for all of those that have. Truly, when I read them, I get so excited and it means so much to me. Hope you all have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.